Hello and welcome to December's full Higher Love Twin Flame Masculine Feminine reading. After a bit of a hiatus, we're revamped, we're here and ready to give you your messages. If you haven't seen it already, I am also doing a daily Higher Love card video Monday through to Friday on this channel. Check out the ones for November that have happened so far. And I'm also on Instagram now, Higher Love Tarot, all one word. So those videos go up there as well on Instagram TV. So we're doing a daily card and a monthly Higher Love card and a weekly Higher Love Masculine Feminine reading over on the Patreon. So lots and lots of content coming out there for support. I really thought that there is need for daily insight with those daily cards. I love doing them. They're really fun. Check those out too. A little bit more shuffle though, and then we can get on with the reading. Make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell so you get those daily readings as they come up. They don't always come up on your feed. It's actually, I can see on my stats that most of you don't get the video up on your feed, so make sure you've hit that notification bell to make sure that you get that video Monday through to Friday. So it's really good to be here. Thank you so much for being here too. Right, so here we go. Just cutting the deck. And bottom of the deck for this reading is the Hierophant. Wow, this is quite a powerful energy. This is about grounding and really anchoring in unconditional higher love. This is about marriage. This is about things that everybody else can see. This is about teaching. This is about leading by example. So this is the overarching card for this month. And it's just that don't lose sight. We shouldn't lose sight. And the whole point, maybe even of this reading and why you're here, is to connect you to the energy of I want to say marriage. It's about marriage, commitment, and it's about understanding marriage as an example. Marriage is a holy agreement. It's an example of love in action in the community, essentially. It's about spreading love out. I do believe that twin flame relationships are ordained in some way by the higher power that is life itself. God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's the life force, the energy that connects us all, that has infinite intelligence, awareness, and is connected to destiny and fate and all of those things. The Hierophant is very much about grounding all of those ideas and feelings and truths in the real world, in the everyday world. So it really is about teaching and leadership through example in relationship, and committed ways to portray that. There is one hand or one explanation, which is that it doesn't matter. Marriage is kind of ridiculous. It's a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. And I completely understand that that truth, and that is true. But the message here is about reclaiming marriage as holy and putting the divinity back into love and marriage. That's what this is about. This is what you're here to do. This is the point. This is your leadership. This is your teaching. This is why you're here. First card for the masculine is the Eight of Swords. Second card for the masculine is the Seven of Cups. Third card for the masculine is the Six of Swords. seven card for the masculine. Fourth card for the masculine is the Seven of Pentacles. First card for the feminine is the Queen of Wands. Second card for the feminine is the Seven of Swords. So sevens. Third card for the feminine is the Five of Cups. Fourth card for the feminine is the Seven of Wands. Do we have all the sevens? We have all the sevens. Middle cards I'm going to put down here but not turn over. And we'll pop this spread up so you can see the cards. That Hierophant's going in the middle. And let's see what's going on here. So the masculine starts off with this eight of swords. I don't remember whether I actually might have called it, might not call it the Eight of Swords. This is the Nine of Swords or the Seven of Swords. The Eight of Swords, and this is all about thoughts, intellect, and attachment, essentially to thinking. It's quite a stressful card. He's in a feeling. He feels like he's in a cage and he's trapped. The truth is, he's not in a cage. He's not trapped. He's just feeling as though he is. It's sticky. This card has a stickiness to it. It doesn't always feel this way, but it feels like he's got his feet in that mud and they keep getting stuck and it's just not coming out. This is all due to the way that he is perceiving things, his thoughts, his perceptions. Those 8 swords are all about thoughts and perceptions, and it's his thoughts and perceptions that are trapping him. He is not trapped at all. He can get out of that. He can't quite see the truth. This is not usually a really, really heavy card, but it feels really heavy in this instance. I feel like this is resistance to, I'm going to call it spirituality. The first card for the feminine is this Queen of Wands. She really represents that intuitive feminine, and it's kind of like the reclaiming of that witchy energy or the witch. The intuitive feminine, the feminine that sees, the seer, the one that sees into the unknown. It's the intuitive arts, but even the kind of weird things like the numerology. You see lots of numbers. You pick up signs from you know, you can read tea leaves. You can use tarot. You can, you know, notice white feathers, as I tend to. You can notice repetitive numbers. You can pick up things from your environment. So I feel like the resistance he has is to her or those kind of experiences, and it's as though he's trapping himself in intellect, and he's not really able to connect with her in that regard, and because of those things. But really, it's not that it's her that has those things or represents those things. It's really the love, the connection, the divinity, like I was saying about bringing that divinity. In order to bring that divinity into the connection and into committed relationship, which really is what that Hierophant's about. Doesn't need to be marriage, but I always get this really strong message that marriage is really powerful, and that is what we should be looking to lead by example within and through, in powerful, divine, ordained, holy, higher love. So those experiences, that intuitive kind of stuff, that kind of magic, that is just part of that love. It's God. It's spirit, source, life force. It's consciousness itself. It's being aware of the natural order of life, the fated order, the divine things, the soul, the language of the soul rather than the chattering of the mind. And so he's just, you know, at the beginning and in some way this month, kind of feeling stuck by that. He is not allowing himself to experience more of that intuitive, creative stuff. He's much more in that intellectual thought that is just not really working for him. It feels very uncomfortable. It feels like stuckness. But it's not a huge energy. It's quite heavy for that card, but it's not like an overarching kind of thing, and things are kind of moving. It is a bit of a tricky month, I can say, though. It's a little bit, there's tricky kind of energies here. I do feel like there could be some resistance. There's quite a lot of resistance around, but that's just, that's in order that we get to where we need to be. It's almost like, this might be a bit sticky here and we'll have to explore this and explore that, but that's because we need to get to this, which is quite a big thing. We're trying to get to grounded, lived love in example, but living by example. I feel like a lot of people kind of feel like, that's not what love's about. This isn't what this is about. And I feel like this message is like being powered through, which is like, no, this is the focus. And it doesn't need to be, kind of necessarily understood by society, but it's that it is about togetherness in the community and leading by example. This is the point. I feel like there's a big, strong message, like this is the point of this. Don't kind of miss it. Then we've got our first pair of sevens. First second card for the masculine is the Seven of Cups, and for the feminine is the Seven of Swords. So there's a balance to us both being in this seven space. There's always a mirror. This is always just aspects. It doesn't matter masculine, feminine, it's all within us. And so we have our own experience and our own perceptions, and then we have our own perception of other people's perceptions. But essentially it's all this kind of mish-mash, which is always one thing that's moving and changing and churning. And the point here is that we meet in the middle. So we're not resisting one another. So it doesn't really matter where we are. So we can have this experience of both and perceive both and be relaxed and non-resistant to both, so that we have the most whole experience. This is kind of the point of relationship and how we relate. So with ourselves, within the world, and with others. But there is this balance when there's these two sevens. It's kind of, there's a balance to it. As I said, the Seven of Cups for the masculine and the Seven of Swords for the feminine. The Seven of Cups is about exploration. It makes sense that it comes after that Eight of Swords. He's kind of looking for, it's about seeking truth, but through feeling. So when the thoughts and the perceptions are quite restricted in that Eight of Swords, that stuckness he can be moved out of, and he does move out of that stuckness into this Seven of Cups energy, which is again kind of a bit mysterious, a bit related to that kind of intuitive, maybe even esoteric kind of spiritual side of things. But it's emotion and it's feeling. The fact that that card has some, some kind of mist in it, that's that kind of mistiness and the unknown aspect to it. It's about doubt, but it's about seeking. I like that he's seeking. So he's seeking more. There's this feeling of unease, and it came from that Eight. This feels better than that Eight of Swords, but he's looking out to try and explore, to try and find what's real and what's not. He is not quite sure. It's about dreams and illusions, this Seven of Cups. So he's exploring. He's asking. What I like about this Seven of Cups is you see the figure in here is black, kind of in the dark. There's an egolessness to that, as in, I don't really exist, I don't really know who I am. That can be quite scary to the mind, but it's quite useful to the soul, because then it kind of goes, it's almost like it's new, like a newborn baby, and it doesn't know anything, and it just seeks to explore and find out. So it's interesting. He's kind of like, well, he's really exploring and maybe even quite conflicted about the whole of his life and what's real and what's not, and there's a lot of doubt in there, but there's action as well. He's kind of like exploring things. I do feel like this is still quite mental, following on from that Eight of Cups, Swords. Still kind of quite in his mind. He's much more in his mind than the feminine, generally, with these masculine, feminine readings. I know that I haven't been on YouTube for a few months, but I'm always on Patreon weekly, so there's always an evolution and a feeling into these masculine and feminine readings. I am back on YouTube once a month here, but there's always a kind of like carry on or a narrative that goes through, and the narrative has been that he is, especially recently, been very kind of like intellectual, thought based, and very kind of mind in his head. Rather than necessarily feeling. It's not that he's not feeling, but it's more like he's working it all out in his head. It's not outwardly, he's not communicating it outwardly. He has his own internal dialogue, internal thinking. The feminine has this Seven of Swords. So I feel like this is kind of frustration. It's that she kind of wants to get away from, there's an unease as well in the feminine experience there, and again it's related to this the thoughts, and it's that she holds on to too many beliefs, and it's these, or truths basically, but it's really beliefs. It's tricky, and it's a really important message. So it comes after this Queen of Wands for the feminine, the intuitive feminine. It's important that she does not attach to those intuitive things. And this can be really tricky because it's very challenging when we're trying to work out love and how it works. But love is always moving and changing, essentially because it's always growing. It's the same as life. It can only really exist in the moment within which we know nothing, because then it just kind of blooms and arises easily. The more we hold on to, or this is what love is, or this is what I am, this is what he is, this is what she is, this is what we are, this is what love is, this is truth, this is, you know, the more we hold on to those things, it gets tricky. Those swords begin to build up. So in that Seven of Swords, she is trying to get away from, it seems within the spread, life, but I feel like there's a bit of judgment in there. In that card, that figure is trying to run away from a camp, for a war camp. The swords within the tarot are very much, for me, about, there's lots of battle. I mean, there's kind of battle within all of the tarot, but there's lots of kind of, for me, it's very war based, because war and conflict is based on an idea of right or wrong. We believe that we're right and the other person is wrong, therefore we are justified in attacking them, killing them, doing whatever we want to do. So every time we carry these weapons, this sword is a weapon. It's kind of like we're holding on to an idea of what's right and what's wrong. The more she builds and holds on to those things, and it's to do with the intuitive stuff. I feel like this message is even about YouTube or people that you see, people you take advice from. It's very important that you take on the advice, but you kind of allow it to move through you and you don't attach to it. Don't get too obsessive with it, because it's almost like people are looking for truth and they want it to be finite, and this is the truth. And truth is always transient and always moving. So the more the feminine holds on to all these beliefs and truths about love and about him and about the world, the scarier the world becomes, and the more she seeks to get away from it. So in this card, she's seeking to get away from the war, which seems to be outside, the conflict. I want to get away from the conflict. I feel like this comes from a nice place, because it's kind of like, I want peace. It comes from a good place, I want peace. But if you take those weapons of war with you, and again, this is more about the outside world. So it's almost this experience of the world is really scary and conflict, and there's scary things. If I move into this love with this person, that's all made better. And that card is saying, no, that's not true, because you take the weapons of war with you. The war is with you. So you've got to kind of let those judgments and ideas go. This isn't a fix. Love isn't a fix. It doesn't fix those things. I mean, it kind of can. But it's almost like you can't disregard the world. It's very connected to this living in the world, living it in the world. You can't kind of like decide, well, the world is wrong and the world is bad and the world isn't conducive to love, and I'll go over here. You've got to kind of soften to the world so you can kind of bring the world into the love. Really beautiful message in that 7 for the feminine. It's still kind of pretty tricky. I'm actually going to carry on with this feminine narrative. The third card for the feminine is this 5 of Cups. And there's all this kind of conflict. The 5s are about perception as well, because the 5s are essentially about the middle and the middle ground, but it can be split for a 3 and a 2, especially with this 5 of Cups. So there are 3 spilt cups, 2 cups standing. There's this experience of loss and lack with the 3 spilt cups, but the trick is to turn around and see that you've got 2 upstanding cups there. It's about emotion, it's about feeling, it's about love, it's about the relationship. So there's a bit of a conflict here, because it's almost like she wants to get out of the pain of the world without the love, the person, in order to come into love. But when she moves into love with him, there's pain there. So it's almost like, well, there's pain here and there's pain there, and I'm kind of stuck in the middle a bit. And it's saying, no, turn around, experience the love. It's similar to this 7 of Swords card for the feminine, which is, no, the love is in the world too. You've got to make sure, feminine, that the love that you feel and know and experience and feel makes you feel alive, and you and all of those things is present in you, in the world, in your whole life, and not just in relationship. So I feel like it could get tricky, because life's not going to let you. It's not going to suddenly get all rosy. You can't run away. Like, if you take those kind of like thoughts about the world with you, wherever you go, you take yourself. And if you take those thoughts into the relationship, it won't work. It's like, if you try and take those thoughts into love, it doesn't work. Love kind of doesn't believe in those things. It won't listen to you. It's like, well, hello, love. I've got all these things I want to tell you about this, and love's like, that just sounds crazy. Sorry, don't need to go away. Or it's not even go away. Love just goes, I don't believe you. And so there's kind of like a mismatch. So I want to go straight on with the 4th card for the feminine, the 7 of Wands. Stand your ground in your truth and your feeling in this relationship. There feels like the energy suddenly becomes kind of quite centered with that 7, because it's ownership. And it's saying, keep going, because there's potential with that 7 of Swords and that 5 of Cups especially, to feel like it's pointless, to feel like there's no reason to go on, to feel like every time I come into this love, it's painful. And again, this idea with that 5 of Cups, that when I go into the love in this higher love relationship, it's pain, it's loss, it's these things. And away out in the world, that's where there's the capacity for love. And maybe in relationship, that 7 of Wands is saying, no, stay in alignment with this love. This is true, and your truth. This is true. You have come so far. You have fought to achieve. You are on the higher ground. Stay on the higher ground. Keep your perspective. And as I said, it feels like a centering. So it's a little bit tricky. There is some resistance, like I said, and things to go through, but it leads to autonomy, strength. There can still be some experience of attack with that 7 of Wands, as if the world doesn't quite get it. But again, that's about putting your head above the parapet. That's about being a leader. That's about, I'm victorious and I'm going to stay here. You are on the higher ground. When you're on higher ground, people can see you, and sometimes they want to take you down. The message of that card is, stay there. You're supposed to be where you are, in this love and your understanding of it. But there's also an autonomy to it, as in, you get to decide. What's your joy? What's your love? What's your passion? You're the life force in you. You must stand firm in that. So it feels like there's this kind of, it gets a bit tricky. And I do think that there is this thing a little bit to do with the spiritual stuff, or the esoteric stuff, or the weird stuff, or the tarot even, or all of these things. One of the things I seek to do with the tarot, and what I want to do through the daily tarot cards, is this very thing, which is, let's make it normal. It's okay to get messages from tarot cards from, the sky, birds, tea leaves, whatever. It comes from anywhere, numbers, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Astrology, lots of other different artistic arts, and that and sciences really that can be measured. It's not about, it's about integrating those into real life or into the mainstream, because again, that's kind of the thing with the love. How do we get these messages that seem kind of, and this love that seems kind of opposite to many things that we think it should be, and operates in a different way? How do we anchor that higher love in the world? That's really what that Hierophant card is about. So it kind of, she goes on this journey from this kind of intuitive thing. She can't attach to it. So at the same time, you can't attach to those things, but you have to kind of make them normal. In a way, it's almost like, thou doth protest too much is something I say quite a lot, which is kind of like, when you know something, you don't need to prove it. And you don't need to kind of attach to it. Don't be, this is the truth. It's just part of life. It's like breathing. And I feel like that's this evolution on the feminine side. So on the masculine side, when the feminine has that third card, this Five of Cups, the masculine has the Six of Swords. So this Six of Swords is about traveling off into better, calmer, easier waters. And for me, within the masculine and feminine idea, that masculine figure is the one that seems in control and is doing the punting, and the feminine has these 6 swords. So we've got present in here 8, 7, and then 6. So within the spread, as you can see, 8, 7, 6 of swords. So they're kind of reducing as they go along, but so again, that 6 is about moving into calmer water, and it is, again, it's about the intellect. It's about softening the thoughts. It's interesting that that feminine figure is there with the masculine. She is in that boat. There's also a child there in that boat. The father is kind of present in that. There's a sense of responsibility in that figure in the boat. And it's challenging for the feminine because she can't really see. He can see a little bit further along. I don't even feel as though he can see, though. I feel like those swords are still kind of in the way. We don't really know where we're going. But he feels this sense of responsibility. He wants to... I feel like if the feminine kind of resists, it makes it difficult for him to feel like he's the one that can be, can lead or can move us into that calmer water. I feel like there is an onus here with the masculine, that it is his responsibility or his kind of role right now to do that punting into that calmer space. But those swords are kind of making it difficult. And I feel that those swords really represent beliefs. So beliefs are just thoughts that we become attached to as true. It's truths. And so the truth is always what people want. But when we hold on to truth, it takes us out of the moment. And I really believe that love can only really live and bloom and operate in presence, in the now. And so when we're carrying and holding on to these beliefs and truths, then this is the way that it is. I am this way, you are that way, love is this. It stops love from just unfolding and blooming and blooming and blooming. It's not that those thoughts aren't It's not that we shouldn't have thoughts or shouldn't have beliefs or shouldn't have truths. Is that we have to soften and we allow them to move through us. And these, that's what gets in the way for both the masculine and the feminine, I feel, in terms of the experience of smooth sailing. But there's a message here that he is the one, yes, let him do that moving. But I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect though, because the feminine has this 5 of Cups when he has that 6 of Swords. So it's like she can't see the truth. Like he's not around, he doesn't want me, or he's very kind of introspective right now, the masculine. He's very kind of, his own internal world is kind of where he lives. He is not really communicating. I mean, if he has a therapist or he's in some kind of therapy or he has someone that he really trusts, there might be that one person that he is relaying his thoughts and ideas and what's kind of going on with him internally, mentally. He might have someone like that, but if he doesn't, I feel like I don't feel like that's the norm for him. It's very much internal, and that can be quite difficult for the feminine because it's like he's not on the planet, he's not here, he's not there, he's in his own internal space, but he's working things out himself. The connection though comes in the six of swords, so be aware of that. That 6 of Swords is where there's this connection. You're in the same boat. You're always in the same boat, but there's the experience, the ability to experience you being in the same boat. But it is that 6 of Swords boat. The feminine's not going to be able to see clearly if she's really focusing on those swords. There's gaps between the swords, so there is that she can experience that. Then the last card for the masculine again. These 7s coming up all together is very interesting. Feminine has that 7 of Wands. He has this 7 of Pentacles. So in that 7 of Pentacles, this is again very much focused on him and his life, practically. Can be career-based. This is about looking at what you've achieved, thinking about how you can move forward. But again, it's a very introspective energy. It's good, it's Pentacles. I mean, it's the only Pentacles that we have out so far. And it's about abundance, it's about achievement, it's about taking into consideration everything you've achieved and your talents and your gifts. I do think the masculine is going through, it's almost like I can see like the matter of his brain is changing shape, like his brain is changing. And maybe that is some kind of message about some kind of upgrade in terms of the way that the brain works. I mean, it is kind of like a radio. It's like electromagnetic. It has lots of different wavelengths that it kind of works on. It's electric. I feel as though what's been going on with the masculine over the past few months is that he's got this kind of like change of like makeup in the way so I feel like I can see like his brain is kind of like literally kind of moving around, or like different synapses are kind of happening, and I don't know the correct terminology, but it's as though it's kind of moving around and coming into a new way of being. And that 7 of Pentacles is part of that, because then it's kind of like, well, who am I in the world? There is a career thing to it. It's the material world and how I operate within that. It's the feeling maybe that there's something else I need to do. The awareness that there's something more I need to do. There's something more I need to become. He's quite slow, the masculine. It takes some time. The feminine's much quicker with realizations. She's like, oh, and she moves with it, and she kind of goes with it. And it is because she's got more intuition. She operates more intuitively. She operates more on that kind of like brain wave. She can pick things up kind of thing. And she's softened to that. So she's quicker to realize things. And so he takes a bit of time. But the good thing about the masculine is that he, in terms of integrating the thought or the kind of like intellect or the scientific with the spiritual, or in some regard, or the intuitive with the kind of like practical. He's very much practically able and has been, and then so it's slower because he's got all this knowledge kind of in a way, and then he's kind of integrating it. So it's not that it's wrong or worse, it's just that it's different. But it's kind of like we do have to have compassion with him because it takes him longer to get with the program. He's taking his time, but everything in its right time. Everything always in its right time. So he's just looking at what he's achieved and thinking about how he can take that on. I do think that is a career thing or a practical day-to-day thing, but it's more like, who am I in the world? What does the world give me? What do I give to the world? What does it give back to me? How can I be more in the world? That's really what that 7 is. So let's turn over this bottom root card. It is the Knight of Wands. Then I'm going to take this Crown card. Oh, Page of Swords. So now we have the Knight of Wands and the Page of Swords. Kind of these 2 court cards moving up this center of the reading. So the Knight of Wands is in that kind of, this is the root of the energy of kind of what's bubbling up, and it's passion. It feels like, because he's looking in the direction of the masculine, it's coming maybe more from the feminine, but it's present for both. It's like it's attraction, it's passion, it's kind of bubbling up. It's this kind of like, it can be sexual. I used to call him my sex knight. He you know, there's a kind of power, passion, and kind of like a visceral kind of, you know, kind of grabby energy a little bit to that knight for me. But he's still regal. He's still regal. Drawn to those 3 pyramids in the bottom of this card, as you can see. 3 kind of Egyptian pyramids. Does that mean anything to you? Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that or any kind of insight, but I feel like maybe it's just mean something to you, or something for you to have some insight or intuition about. But the crown here is the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords can be quite angry, can be quite reactive. He gets quite... It's a childlike energy in the page, or it's an immature energy. It doesn't really think its way through. But again, it's those swords. There's capacity. I feel like it's saying that sexual energy and that sexual attraction is kind of coming out in a bit aggressively, or a little bit curt, or a little bit like, oh, F you then. It's a little bit like, you know, it's cutting. It doesn't mean to be, though. It's almost like if we don't know how to express that sexual, sensual passion and energy, and it's difficult because it's almost like we don't have the language for it. It's almost like it just comes out in that kind of swordy thing. But I do think that is related to the swords that are kind of happening in the beliefs. So it's almost like, I have this huge attraction for you, which should be reciprocated, and if it's not, oh, you're an idiot. You know, it's a bit like a child just says, well, you're this, and then it's a bit kind of petty. But I don't think it's wrong. I think it's because it's very difficult to know what to do with the passion and the sexual attraction when there's all this other stuff going on. It's almost like there isn't really a path for it. Energy the feminine brings to the masculine is the 3 of Cups. Energy the masculine brings to the feminine is the 9 of Pentacles. So he has, I want to talk about that 9 of Pentacles because it feels kind of connected to that 7. I feel like what the masculine wants to gift is his practical ability, and his, I love this. This 9 of Pentacles is one of my favorite cards. It really represents contentedness, abundance, appreciation. I love birds. There's that gorgeous bird just there, perched. It really represents the peace and the power of abundant nature and life itself. He's really in this experience that life is abundant and joyful, And it is reflected in the feminine card. So the feminine has this Two of Cups, but it's about celebration. It's about community. It does have a feminine aspect to it, about women or feminine kind of energies. So it's celebration. There's a real feeling of joy. We meet in joy. And again, I'm drawn to this Hierophant card. It's marriage, community, joy, communication, free-flowing, high vibration stuff, grounded, set, to be taught, to be experienced fully. It's like this very solid feeling to it. So this is this key with love, keeping this high vibration energy and then grounding it deeply in everyday life. And this is what this is all about. This is what you're about. This is really the point. And I feel like this is a really strong message moving through me here. This is the point. This is the point. This is the point. And it's happening. It is happening. It might be slow. It's like a child growing. If you're with a child every day and it's, you know, you don't necessarily notice, but you don't see it for a while, and suddenly it's like, wow, you've grown, you know. It's love is like that, and this love is like that. It's almost like if you give it too much attention, you won't notice how quickly actually it is happening. You won't even notice that it is happening if you don't stop to notice that it is. And so again, that's a strong message. It is happening. And the outcome. Two of Pentacles, and I feel like this is even more talking about that bridging of two worlds, and also a message about the infinity of this love. This love is infinite, it never ends. But really what I love about this Two of Pentacles is that infinity symbol loop, that line, that ribbon, or that kind of tape, whatever you want to call it, that's connecting those two pentacles through that figure. That's love. And that's kind of where we want to be on that. So there can be two opposing worlds, two opposing practical experiences with those pentacles. And it's really having the ability to explore both of them. It's also a message that, you know, masculine and feminine meet all the time. They are always connected. It doesn't matter if they're really experiencing the same world. If they are both in love on that love train, that's where we connect. We're never going to be exactly the same. Talk about twins, twin flames, two. We're never going to be exactly the same, but we can be, we can experience two things at the same time. That's the point, to experience two worlds, to bring two worlds together. The message about bringing spirit and matter together. The message about bringing masculine and feminine together. The two parts of ourselves. It's kind of like the perceived and the perceiver. It doesn't really matter what those dualities are. It's when we are awareness, when we are consciousness, when we are love, we are the line that connects everything. We are the two. We don't get attached to anything. We're always moving. Love is always moving, always experiencing. It isn't afraid of either world. It isn't afraid of either perspective. Embrace your perspective, embrace their perspective. And I think that's it. So as I said, if you're interested in weekly insight, I do this weekly reading live over on Patreon. The link is below. Please check that out. It's on every Sunday. A monthly one's coming up on YouTube, so it will be every month from now, as it was before. And daily cards. So there's a lot of information coming through now, a lot of insight. So it's here for you. if you are interested in non-duality, essentially, I was reminded by this card. I am launching a second channel. I'll put the link to that below, which is going to be about non-duality. Really, it's love. It's all love, but it's not focused on tarot, not necessarily focused on twin flame, but focused on how to live in a life where there's no right and wrong, and there's just embracing everything, and how to actually do that, living an awakened life. That's the channel which I am launching as well. Just been feeling like I had a bit of time whereby it's almost like I always feel like when things don't feel like they're happening and there's a bit of a hiatus with things, it is like an arrow, a bow and arrow is being pulled back and then it gets released. And I feel like that's kind of happening now for me with this sharing. So it feels really good to me. And I feel like it's indicative that there's lots of information that needs to come out, that needs to get to you. So thank you for being here. Please share this video with anyone you think would find it useful. Please share the daily card videos as well, because they are more kind of mainstream. And for me, they really are about integrating this higher love in with everybody, because it's just about insight. It's about living in love. It works for everybody. So it's a way of kind of introducing people to the magic, where they don't necessarily have a powerful twin flame experience like that you might be having. So that's it. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience. I know there's been a bit of a gap, but like I said, new things just needed to form, and they're here now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please like this video if you liked it. Please leave me a comment. Let me know how you feel, what's going on, and share across all platforms where you think there are twin flames that need help, guidance, support, information, or anyone really. I think there are plenty of people that are involved in unconditional love relationships and they don't know how to navigate them. I meet them all the time. Everyone has a different experience, but all of the teachings and messages that come through here, I do believe they're for everybody. They're for the whole collective. So yeah, spread the love and get it all out. That's what I'm really wanting to do at the moment. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love. Thanks for your support. And I shall see you next month, or I'll see you on Sunday if you're on the Patreon group. Otherwise, lots and lots of love. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. Have an amazing month. And just be you. Just be your truth, and know that it's always changing. Lots of love.